And Rich, you wouldn't know it by what they're outwardly saying, but the White House savoring a major victory tonight. And while the debate over health care reform is guaranteed to rage on, today's ruling caps a more than 2-year legal battle that has divided the country. It was a landmark decision. By a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court upheld the individual mandate, the heart of President Obama's Affordable Care Act. But today at the White House, in the same room where he signed the legislation more than 2 years ago, the president skipped a victory lap.
Today's decision was a victory for people all over this country, whose lives will be more secure because of this law.
In a surprise to many court watchers, Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the liberal justices. The majority's decision that said that Americans can't be forced to buy health insurance, but they can be penalized or taxed for choosing not to. Roberts wrote, quote, "Because the Constitution permits such a tax, it is not our role to forbid it or to pass upon its wisdom or fairness." Republicans said the only way to get rid of the health care law now is to vote the president out of office. And Mitt Romney said nothing had changed.
Obamacare was bad law yesterday. It's bad law today.
With the court's decision, all of the provisions of the law remain intact. Children under 26 can remain on their parents' health care plan. Children with pre-existing conditions cannot be denied coverage, and there will be no limits on how much policies pay out. But Americans aren't sold on the law. A new ABC News Washington Post poll found that only 1/3 have a favorable opinion of it.
It should be pretty clear by now that I didn't do this because it was good politics. I did it because I believed it was good for the country.
Now, 2 weeks in 2 weeks, Republicans in the House going to hold a second vote to repeal the health care law, and it will pass in the House. But since the Senate will not act and the president would surely veto it if they did, that vote will be a symbolic but ultimately meaningless one. Rich?
Although it speaks to how contentious this issue still is and also will be from now through November, obviously in this political calendar. All right. Let's bring in our legal expert here, Andrew, on this. We got a host of guests tonight, but first is Marc Fernich, criminal defense attorney and professor at Brooklyn Law, and he's argued before the Supreme Court and has been named a New York Metro super lawyer. And also, more than appearing for the High Court, you called this thing. You said it was going to be 5-4, and you actually had Roberts. I think you might be the only one. You thought that he was going to rule here with liberal justices, and he did, to the surprise at least of many.
Well, yeah, I think that the court has taken a lot of flack over its perceived partisanship in the wake of Citizens United and Bush versus Gore, deeply unpopular decisions that were widely perceived as politically motivated. And in an election year, I don't think that he, as chief of the court, was spoiling for a major constitutional showdown with the representative branches, and I think it has powerful symbolic weight. The fact that the chief is the one who offered this opinion. So the fact that he wrote it and the fact that he came down in the majority surprises me less than that Kennedy went with the dissenters.
And we're going to go down yet again, another 5-4 decision on this, and I want to talk with you a little bit. I think it was a very good day for the court and a good day for America, where they can still perceive that the Supreme Court isn't yet another partisan branch. Sure, there's politics involved, sure, there are political appointees, but, you know, for me, and maybe I'm a little Pollyannish, I thought this was still a good day overall for the nation. Now,
no question about that.
Mark, I can't overemphasize the significance of today because, can I? I mean, this piece of legislation that it upheld and how we view the role of federal government here, what they can and can't do, for somebody who follows this, this wasn't just another decision or another piece of legislation. This really spoke to what a president or Congress, the legislative and executive branch, can do under our, basically, our Constitution and our framers' ideas.
Well, more than that, I think it speaks to what the court can and should do. I mean, to me, what Chief Justice Roberts did today was show judicial restraint and deference to the legislative branch. And that's what the Republicans purport to want in their judges. Deference, moderation, and respect for the legislative branch.
And they hate activism, and that's where a lot of people thought they may come to. Now, in terms of the breakdown here, we're going to break down the details of it, but largely, as Andrew said, and we heard from most court watchers, an unequivocal win for the administration. There was one portion is related to Medicaid here that Roberts may have broke ranks with some of the other 4 justices that joined him in the majority. Is that significant or not?
I don't think it's significant. I think the real crux of this, everybody was so focused on the mandate as being the heart of the act that if the mandate would go, the entire act would have to go, and that's the real story here.